Good morning. How are you? Um, it's been a sort of a busy month. I'm trying to stop using the word busy because it's not a good word. It has a lot of negative connotations. But I haven't figured out something else to use in its place yet. So unfortunately, I am still relatively well occupied at this point in time with all of my things that I'm doing. I have got some work that I'm doing now, which is good. I think that's given me a little bit of purpose. Also gets me out of the house, which is quite good. Um, so from that sort of point of view, I think I've found that is actually a good thing for me to be working, to be doing something, and those sort of things. But it then also has an impact, like for all of us. Obviously, work then compacts the time that we have as well, and so that's something that I have to sort of work through and understand, and also get a little bit more sense of. And so one thing that it has sort of done now that I've gone back to work after having such a long time off, and it's interesting how quickly you adapt to something like that. I've realised that, you know, because I've not had sort of real time limits, it's been a little bit easier for me to just go from one thing to the next, or not do anything at all, which is not good. But one thing that going back to work has highlighted is really about this idea of having is making fun in your life. I think there are simple ways to do that, and when you've got all the time in the world, fun either comes in naturally because you just start to do a little bit more fun things, not work related or not chores related, or you've now got where your work normally was, you did your chores, and so therefore you don't feel as tired, and so fun is a little bit easier to get into habit, get into your life at that point in time. Um, but what I've also found now that I'm back working, it's sort of like there are things that I did and things that I was doing that were for various things, but also those ones that were particularly about fun. Um, it's interesting how much you want to sort of hold on to those, and make sure that you still do those, maybe to the detriment of some of the things that you might like, that you might need to do as well. And this is all the whole need and what's the name. But what it really got me thinking about is what is fun for me. And I think this is something that I don't or haven't thought about too much. Like I said, you either start doing stuff that is fun, and you just enjoy it and you have some good time with it, or you don't end up doing it. You just start doing work, you start doing chores, you start doing all of those sort of things, and fun is just something that sort of happens in between. For those lucky enough that maybe fun is spending time with family, or fun is just going out, that's really what fun is. Then that might be a little bit easier, because then you a lot of times you can put sort of two things together, and it'll make it a lot easier. But I think for some of us, there's not necessarily that sort of equivalency. Fun can be either some sort of hobby that we're doing. Fun can either be something that takes up a bit of time, whether it's engrossing or it just needs a decent amount of time to actually get into it, set it all up, or whatever it happens to be. One of the things that I try to do, as I've sort of said, is with blacksmithing, but that actually requires quite a bit of time to set up. And I'm not bemoaning that or anything like that, but you've got to put on all the right the right equipment. You've got to put on make sure that everything is safe. You've got to get a fire started, and then you've got to make sure that it gets to a hot enough temperature to be actually usable. And then you need all your tools and everything like that. You need to sort of think about what you're doing, your design, and so on and so forth. And those things can be done beforehand and stuff. But it's only when you sometimes see the metal that you can sort of think of what you could make with it, or something like that as well. So sometimes it's fun is those sort of things where it's a little bit more involved. Also for me, fun can sometimes be just taking a walk with the dog, or doing something with the dog. But then, she's an animal, and she mightn't be into that sort of thing at that point in time as well. So Sometimes it's dependent on other people. Whether it's also whether you do some sort of gaming or something like that, it may be something you can do by yourself, or it might be something that you need others with you, depending on what type of game or what you're doing as well. But this whole process at the moment actually got me thinking about what is really fun for me. What are the things that I actually enjoy doing? And not only enjoy doing, but also get a real sense of fulfillment out of them and joy out of them as well. So, I mean, the idea of enjoying something, but you also want it just to give you some sort of pleasure inside that is actually worthwhile. And I think for me that was quite an interesting question, because I was doing stuff. I was, gaming. I was walking. I was trying to do blacksmithing. I was gardening. I was doing all of those things. And it's interesting how some of those then just can become chores, because you just sort of feel like, oh, well, I've got to do it. I mean, gardening can be one of those things where you're sort of like, all right, well, if I leave it, all I get is weeds. But if I actually work at it, then I might get something that I need. So it can very quickly turn from something that's enjoyable to something that's more of a chore or work. And I think you constantly have to be looking out for that things don't turn over from one thing to another, or that you're also not still getting, you're no longer getting that same sense of joy that you once had from this fun thing. And for me, going back to work was the trigger of all of this. It sort of started me down this road of what is fun, what are the things that I do enjoy doing, because I wanted to keep those going in my life, so that I still had that balance of things that I was doing, either the work-life balance, as people say, or just the things that actually made a difference and made me feel like I wasn't just all about work, or I wasn't all just about making money, or whatever it happened to be. So it was very interesting for me to sort of go through that. And I did come up with quite a few things that actually give me some sort of joy. They can easily fall over into becoming a chore, and I think that's where I've got to be careful. But I sort of want to put this foot to you in a sort of way. What is actually the thing that gives you fun? Because, when I think about my own mental health and stuff, and I've noticed that I have, over these last 6 months, where I've been not had the stress of a job. I've had other stresses, obviously. There's different stresses when you don't have work and stuff like that. Self-worth and all of those sort of things come in. But when I've not had, and I've had to fill it with things that are actually enjoyable, I've found better enjoyment around my life in general. There's still been moments when, self-worth and those sort of things have actually taken over completely, and I've had complete down days or even weeks. But because there's been a little bit more joy, there's been a bit more of a balance, and I've sort of found certain things have been able to bring me back from the brink a little bit better than other times. So it is, I think, very important to sort of think about those fun things and make sure that you include those. So really, at the end of this, I want you to think about your own fun things. What has made a difference in your life? What actually gives you joy? And really sort of think about how those things impact you, and try and think about whether they actually then turn into something more chore-like or work-like, and whether that's fine, whether you're still getting that enjoyment from it, or whether you have now turned what was once fun and you think you're still enjoying it, but into a bit more of a chore. And you'll find what just the feelings you have about those will tell you straight away whether it's still enjoyable, or whether it has actually turned it into something a little bit more work-like as well. Sometimes you might get some of those things, but I think you've got to assess those every now and again to sort of see whether they are still doing the things for you. So I really challenge you to think about your fun activities. Do they still bring you joy? And if they don't, maybe it's time to find something new and different, And then maybe that's what is actually the fun part for you, is that new and different. Anyway, I hope this has been of interest. I know I've been rambling a little bit, but sometimes it's good to sort of just think about and talk about all your feelings around that. Anyway, have a good day. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you again soon.